So this is Friday, October 22nd, the second day of our 4-day October 2021 Jataka session. Tonight, we will look at the Monkey King Jataka, the Mahakapi Jataka, which is number 407 in the Pali collection of 547 such past life tales of the Buddha. And we'll look at this in relation to the Pranidhana Paramita, which is perfection of resolve. I will begin with a quote from Hakuin. Zen Master Po Yun stated, "It was because I was acquainted with a great many of the words and deeds of former teachers that I was able to complete my religious quest. An utterance," says Hakuin, "of truly incalculable worth. Because I was acquainted with a great many of the words and deeds of former teachers, I was able to complete my religious quest." So we'll look at the Bodhisattva tonight in the animal realm, last night in the God realm, or Deva realm, and in the animal realm, we'll look at his deeds. And this is newly revised from a Teisho that originally appeared in my book, Endless Path, Awakening in the Buddhist Imagination, which itself grew out of our earlier Jataka session. So the story goes like this. Long ago, when Brahmadatta reigned in Benares, the Bodhisattva was born as a monkey. When grown, he stood tall as a colt, and he was strong. He gave good advice, could even stand his ground against a leopard, and had a knack for finding shelter and food. Not surprisingly, the monkeys chose him as their king. A mango tree grew by the river in the Monkey King's territory. The big tree's leaves were thick and glossy and kept off the hot sun. The twists and turns of its branches were excellent for climbing, resting, and sleeping. But what was best of all was that its fruit tasted sweeter than honey. So the monkeys called this tree their home and named it the treasure tree. One day, the monkey Bodhisattva began to think that while their home had been safe so far, there was still danger. For if a fruit fell into the river and then floated downstream, it would come to the cities of men. And when men tasted the fruit, they'd want more of it, and they'd come searching for the treasure tree. So he called a gathering, and when all the monkeys were, young and old, were there together in the tree, chattering and grooming in the branches around him, the Bodhisattva said, "There's danger." "Danger?" exclaimed the monkeys, peering around anxiously with bared teeth. "Is it a leopard, an eagle, a python? What is it? And what shall we do, great king?" Be easy," said the great monkey. "I speak of future danger. It will come to us through our own carelessness, and it will be brought to us by men." "Men!" they exclaimed. "No men live here." "They will come," said the Monkey King, "if we bring them." Then he told them of his fear. So he concluded, we must be vigilant. Any fruit growing over the river must be plucked before it ripens and falls. If we do this, we will live on in peace. "You can count on us, great king," shouted the monkeys. Yet, unseen by any of them, a tiny fruit grew larger, ripening while hidden among the leaves. And one night it fell into the river with a faint splash and went bobbing in the starlight downstream. That night, the Monkey King had some bad dreams. He dreamed of a skull and a spear and a fire. He dreams of cities and houses of stone. He dreamt of men. He awoke with a start, but everything was quiet. The river lapped against the shore. The leaves of the treasure tree fluttered softly. Stars shone down bright and clear. The world went on in its glory, and he drifted back to sleep. But the mango fruit floated on and on. Fishes, birds, snakes, otters all failed to catch it. At last it came to rest on the shore of a park-like garden, far downstream. The garden belonged to a human king who was relaxing there. Palace women were tossing a ball back and forth, And when one missed it and the ball rolled to the river's edge, she ran to get it and found the mango. Oh, it smelled sweet, very sweet. What is that? Called the king. Bring it here. Well, she brought it to him, and he sniffed it. What a perfume. He took out his silver knife and cut a slice, and he ate it. Oh, it was good. He ate the whole fruit. Get my boat, he ordered. This magical fruit must have floated downstream. We must go upstream and find the tree it came from. His men rowed the king's boat upstream against the current. It was back-breaking work, for the boat was loaded with courtiers, advisors, women. While the men rowed, the palace women sat beside the king, fanning him, telling him stories to amuse him and ease his impatience. They told tales of mighty kings and beautiful queens, of heroes who conquered impregnable cities, of war horses, elephants in battles, of suits of gleaming armor and magical swords, of wise men who flew in great serpents that lived under the sea. And they told too of forest spirits, talking animals, and of skywalkers who moved through the night in aerial cars of silver and gold. Yes, yes, fretted the king, well and good, but when will we find my tree? Soon the king smelled that perfume. Rising from his cushions, he peered eagerly ahead, and there he saw the treasure tree, and hanging from its branches like so many golden lanterns, the fruit. But in the tree, on the tree, swinging and scampering and eating the fruit of his tree were monkeys, hundreds of them. Archers, ready your bows, he ordered. Those monkeys are eating our royal fruit. Shoot them, and we'll feast on roasted monkey and mango. The Bodhisattva, the monkey king, heard, and he knew that his nightmare had come true. The monkeys, too, saw the drawn bows and knew it meant death. They stopped eating, chattering, swinging, leaping, and huddled miserably together among the tree's branches and leaves. The monkey king said, "The nightmare is real. Now I must save my people." Now there was another tree more than an arrow's flight away. The monkey Bodhisattva measured a long vine with his eye, wrapped one end of it around his body, tying it tight. Then gathering his strength, he took a great leap from the treasure tree to the one farther from the river. But in measuring the length of the vine, he had forgotten to include his own great size. So instead of reaching the bole of the other tree and being able to tie the vine securely there, he now held only the outer tips of the tree's branches in his hands. "Quick," he called, "all of you, run over the vine and across my body to safety. But be quick about it. My grip will not last long." Monkeys began scampering, swinging, running across the vine, over their king's body into the safety of the other tree. Hundreds of monkeys ran swiftly and lightly until only one big monkey remained. That one monkey was almost as big as the monkey king, and he held a grudge. He'd wanted to be king, but the monkeys had chosen the Bodhisattva instead. Now he saw his chance for revenge. He too ran along the vine, but when he reached the monkey king, he stamped down hard with both feet before running on. The Bodhisattva groaned in pain, for his back was broken, but still he held tight. The human king saw it all. "Put down your bows," he ordered. "We must save that noble monkey." Rowing into the shore, his men leapt onto the land, ran to the tree, and spread a net beneath the monkey king just as his grip failed and he fell. They caught him safely, and they lowered him to the ground. The monkeys sat huddled in the distant tree watching. The big monkey sat alone. No other monkey would come near him. The human king approached the monkey king. "Why did you risk your life for the others?" he asked. "You're big. You're the greatest of these monkeys. You're clearly their leader. That makes you the most important one. They should have risked their lives to save and protect you. You shouldn't have sacrificed your life for them. Yes, I am their leader, said the monkey Bodhisattva, which means that I care so much for them and their welfare that I am resolved to do all I can to help them. This is what it means to be their king. Hearing this, something awoke in the human king's heart. Everything that had been upside down turned right side up, like the hull of a boat coming upright after being swamped in deep water. I shall not forget your teaching, he said, for you've changed my life. Not understanding this truth, I forced my people to serve me and my wants. I came here ready to kill to get what I wanted. But instead of fruit, I received wisdom. Our meeting was not by chance. I shall be a better king, caring for my people, not making them serve me. Many lives will benefit from your wisdom. The great monkey listened, closed his eyes, and peacefully died. When the king returned to his palace, he brought with him the skull of the monkey Bodhisattva. He covered it with silver and etched it with gold. Mounting it on a spear, he kept a fire burning always before it. Each year he held a ceremony in honor of the monkey king. Gathered there with his people, they renewed, all of them together, renewed their gratitude to the monkey king, whose wisdom had so changed all their lives for the better. The monkeys lived on in their tree, at peace and unharmed for many generations, but they would not give kingship to the murderer. They drove him out, so that he died alone and forgotten, his body rotting into the rich, dark earth to give back life for the life he'd so selfishly taken. So that's the Monkey King, Jataka. Let's take a look at it from the ground of practice. Perfecting the paramitas, or the perfections, is an evolving process. Hakuin once asked his main disciple, Tore, why he had started Zen practice, and Tore answered, why, to save all beings, of course. Hakuin responded, it said, with a delighted laugh. That's so much better than my own reason, he said. I began just to ease my own terror of falling into hell. For even such a dedicated and gifted practitioner as Hakuin, practice evolves. This Jataka appears both in the Jataka Mala of Aryashura as well as in the Pali Jataka, where it is the Mahakapi Jataka, as I mentioned, number 407. It appears as a carving, too, at both the Bodhnath and Sanchi shrines. So it was clearly an important Jataka embraced since earliest times by both the popular imagination and the ordained Sangha. In both versions, the story embodies the deep bodhisattvic aspiration so beautifully presented by the great 7th century Indian Buddhist teacher Santideva in his classic Way of the Bodhisattva, the Bodhi Karyavatara. That wish is, I wish to be a bridge for all beings. Here, the Buddha to be is a powerful monkey king who, resolving to save his people from terror and destruction, uses his own body to make a bridge. In the process, he bridges the divide between species, spans a flood of misunderstanding, and saves not just his own people, but a human king and his subjects as well from the consequences of self-centered, delusive thinking. But bridges break, and even the virtuous suffer. And in this Jataka, the Bodhisattva dies. The Jatakas reveal that in past lifetimes, the Bodhisattva had been ill-treated, betrayed, even murdered by one who is to reappear 2,500 years ago as Devadatta, the Buddha's deeply deluded, egotistic cousin. Here, Devadatta is the jealous monkey, who, in order to satisfy a personal thirst for vengeance and power, willingly destroys the protector of his own monkey people. Surely this is the very opposite of wisdom. While this is a 2,500-year-old story, sadly, there are still people acting like this today. The story remains relevant because self-centeredness remains a perennial challenge for every generation, every person, maybe every being, as this Jataka shows. By giving in to selfish, egotistic desires, the Devadatta monkey puts his own tribe at risk. History is littered with similar events. Perhaps it is time we all grew up. Karma evolves, expanding like a paper flower dropped in a bowl of water, and not always for the good. Devadatta just keeps getting worse and worse until by his own deeds he consigns himself to the lowest hells. The good news is that once down there, he can't go any lower, but will have a chance to start rising up again. Nothing is permanent in the 6 wandering realms of karmically conditioned samsaric life: hells, hungry ghostly realms, animal realms, realms of humans, asuras, and devas, all are temporary expressions of cause and effect. For some, that is good news, especially if, like Devadatta, you're in a low hell, where even a fleeting second might seem to last 1,000,000 tortured years. Despite the crushing weight of Devadatta's own evil deeds, despite the immensely heavy karma pressing him down eventually, though it will take billions of lifetimes, even he will return to a favorable human condition from which enlightenment is possible. Not only that, eventually he'll not just regain his own errant humanity and a degree of enlightenment, but get this, he'll actually, Buddhist tradition asserts, go on to one day become a fully perfected, wise, and compassionate Buddha. But that day is so many world ages away, so many expansions and contractions of the universe in the future, it's impossible to fathom. Mahayana literally means great way, able to carry all beings to liberation. There is nothing narrow or small-minded about it. As Hakuin says in his Zazen Wasan song in praise of Zazen, from the very beginning, all beings are Buddha. The ice of our congealed condition of body and mind has been water from the beginning. Yet how long it can take to see this and to melt the ice. The image Buddhist tradition offers for attaining a fortunate human birth in which the Dharma can be heard, thought about, and practiced speaks of a blind turtle swimming in an endless sea. Once every 100 years, the turtle rises to the surface and pushes its head up into the air and light. A board with a hole in it floats on that vast ocean. What are the odds that the turtle will stick its head through the hole in the board? Long odds indeed. Yet these are the very odds that we and every human being have already faced and beaten. But once we are human, encountering and acknowledging the Dharma is said to repeat those same blind turtle odds again, doubling our initial long shot. For even having human form doesn't actually yet mean we're truly human. If by human we mean someone who's genuine and steadfast, reliable, compassionate, wise. The blind turtle parable really also points to that. The long odds we face in becoming truly grown up, mature, unself-centered human beings. It points to all the effort and all the years of trying and failing and trying again, all the work it will take for us blind slowpokes to actualize the way of the Bodhisattva. So the old tales are not as literally quaint as we might initially think. As Roshi Kapleau used to say, the ancient teachings illumine the mind, and the mind illumines the ancient teachings. The ancient teachings offered by the Monkey King Bodhisattva ring true today. Leadership doesn't mean that others owe us and should blindly bow to our vision, power, or desires. The human king in this 2,500-year-old story thinks that it does, but the Jataka shows him to be quite wrong. And he shows us this truth today, too, even as the same kind of egregiously deluded, self-centered leaders continue to arise and wreak havoc on us all. True leadership, which the monkey Bodhisattva doesn't just talk about like I'm doing here, but demonstrates in fully resolved action, grows from a leader's selfless love for his or her people. It arises from a committed willingness to serve as a bridge from danger to well-being, across dissension, harsh words, sorrow, despair, and ultimately, if bodhisattva vows are involved across the troubled stream of delusion to the other shore of functioning enlightenment. A leader is a bridge, not a wall. Zhao Chu, Joshu, in case 52 of the Hekiganroku Blue Cliff record, P.N. Lu in Chinese, says, in speaking about the famous bridge in the town of Zhao Chu, like other masters, of course, he took the name of his temple's location as his own name. Horses cross over, donkeys cross over. A bridge doesn't judge. It selflessly stands and spans the flood, joining sundered shores. The bridge of Jiaochu still stands today, the oldest arc span in the world, an engineering marvel. Many of us walked across it back in 2006 on our China pilgrimage. The river it crossed was foul, pea green, and the stench emanating from it was horrible, like that of some river in hell. Roses grew along the shore, part of an effort, it seemed, to keep that horrible smell at bay. That bridge has stood for over 1,000 years. People must be very grateful that they don't have to swim or row across that narrow, stinking river. This Jataka has stood for well over 2,000 years, offering a metaphor that rings true throughout the Bodhisattva way. To cross the stream of delusive thinking, we must ourselves become bridges, rafts, boats, inner tubes, airplanes, vines, whatever works. And to become such useful things, we will need not just wisdom, not just compassion, but pranidhana, or resolve. It all begins with a vow, the great vow to save or liberate the many, really the countless beings. Buddhist tradition says that this is the most worthy, most noble undertaking, this vowing to accomplish the Buddha way for the sake of all. It is the path that is outlined, modeled, and embodied by the Jatakas, and it is the path expressed and recommitted to regularly by Zen practitioners in our 4 great vows for all. Why is resolve, or the paramita of pranidhana, so central? Because, as with all worthy enterprises, difficulties are bound to arise, ranging from the simplest, nah, I'm too busy to sit today, all the way to the kind of full-blown life and death challenge faced by advanced bodhisattvas like the Monkey King. The challenges are set in motion by the very depth of the vow. The good news is that challenges are how we mature. The hurdles a runner faces helps them actualize their potential. Life challenges are the way we learn to put forth our best and grow beyond our own deeply rooted habits of self-centeredness. how we learn to let self-protectiveness go and give even more. When young, Tongan Roshi, who appears in the Three Pillars of Zen as Philip Kapleau's friend and mentor, Tongan son, was trained as a kamikaze pilot. His first and last flight was already scheduled for takeoff when Japan surrendered and the war in the Pacific was finally over. Later, when he began Zen practice, he resolved that an ordinary chair would be his model. A chair doesn't get upset if someone spills anything on it. It doesn't complain if it gets knocked over. If someone wants to sit down, it's there. If someone needs something to stand on, there it is too. He was acknowledging the ancient aspiration articulated by Shantideva in the way of the Bodhisattva. I want to be useful to others. I want to serve. I want to be a lamp, a boat, a chair. I want to be a bridge. That resolve impelled and guided him into very deep, selfless practice. How do you become a bridge? How do you build one? First, you need a diagram, a sketch, a blueprint. This jataka will do. Then materials, body, speech, and mind are the traditional ones. And finally, you need manpower. In this case, pranidhana, resolve. Classical Buddhism offers this formula for the perfecting of this paramita. I resolve to do good. I resolve to avoid evil. I resolve to save the many beings. When asked about the essence of Buddhism, Bird's Nest Roshi, a noted Zen master in ancient China, who had a habit of doing zazen up in a tree, answered his questioner. The lay practitioner, noted poet, and governor of the province, Po Chu-yi, saying, do good, avoid evil, save the many beings. The governor and poet retorted, a child of 3 knows that. A child of 3 may know it, answered Bird's Nest Roshi, but a man of 70 still finds it hard to fully practice. Accomplishing the way, having the steadiness and resolve to do it, is no easy task. Time and again, we draw ourselves back to the most basic, fundamental forms, crossing our legs, straightening our posture, counting our breaths, following breaths, questioning a koan, sitting completely focused, letting everything else go. The ancient bridge gets maintained, repaired, even entirely rebuilt moment by moment if we are resolved, or to put it another way, if we are committed. But there's another aspect to bridge building, a fundamental one we should also keep in mind. When we strip away the non-essentials, what we find is that resolve is the bridge. That in reality, there is no bridge to build, maintain, or repair. The bridge has been standing from the beginning. It is already perfect, whole, complete. Nothing can be taken from it, nothing added to it. And what does it connect? Ourselves with what we might be, what we have always been, and what we will be. What we've been forever searching for is accomplished. The bridge is built, and yet, once long ago, so far back that time itself has no meaning, a monkey already embodied a complete resolution, a perfected fulfillment of pranidhana, or resolve for the sake of all, becoming a bridge to help others cross over to the safety of the other shore. The Dharma wheel keeps turning. Now it's up to each of us. Our world needs bridges. Roshi Kapleau used to say, no sincere effort is ever wasted. If you don't let the Dharma down, the Dharma will never let you down. Drop by drop, over time, water will pierce the hardest stone. The Jatakas say, Time being endless, practice continues endlessly. One count, one breath, one koan, one round of zazen, one sesshin day at a time. We renew our own maturing path with this breath. Buddhist tradition also asserts that bodhisattvas in various forms are around us here on this earth right now, which means that jatakas are taking place right now as well. Dian Fossey, who revealed so much about the lives of mountain gorillas, perhaps you know the book or saw the movie Gorillas in the Mist, which was about her life and her work, and who lost her own life protecting them, had a unique relationship with a particular silverback gorilla she named Digit because of a twisted finger from in the past as a young gorilla. He had been caught in a trap set out by poachers. Uh, Digit died courageously protecting his family from poachers. He stood his ground and faced the poachers and their dogs alone, giving every member of his family time to escape. Dian Fossey spoke about him being a particularly sensitive, curious, really compassionate kind of being. She didn't have a Buddhist context for this, but she was struck by something quite unusual about him. And this is how he died. And his story very much reminds me of the Jataka of the Bodhisattva monkey king, who offers his life to save his people. I did a fictionalized account of the story of Digit, and I'd like to read you a little section from it, an excerpt, and that appeared in The Hungry Tigers, the final version of that book, which came out, I think, in 1999. Buddhist Myths, Legends, and Jataka Tales, completely revised and expanded edition. So this is a little bit of that story, personalized. Digit sat up, sleepy and dreaming, his silvery back propped against the bole of a tree. His hands lay cupped, open, and relaxed on the earth beside him. The sunlight streamed down into his palms, warming the skin, the bones. He felt absently at the ridge of scar which encircled his right wrist and disappeared into the root of the badly twisted third finger, his bracelet of memory, left long ago by a poacher's wire snare. The old man, which is would be the leader of his troop, the mature silverback who led them, had freed Digit from the trap that day, but the hand, the leader gorilla had used his teeth and freed the Digit's hand, but the hand had been mangled in the process. Digit did not forget that time or that moment. He rubbed his scarred hand, he looked up. Immense white clouds drifted slowly high overhead in the clear blue sky. He looked around. The shaggy bodies of his family lay slumbering in the glade. He watched ants carrying bits of leaf from particles of food among gigantic seeming stems and stalks. His eyes grew heavy and closed. His head nodded forward, and soon he too was asleep. He had a dream. He dreamed he was a hawk floating motionless high in the air, rocking balanced on long pinions. The wind blew all around. Down below on a dusty plain, red as rust, gigantic animals stirred into life, taking shape out of dust. They stretched, yawned, and began to move. The wind came up through the trees. Leaves fluttered like hands. And Digit heard a voice in his dream calling, "Digit, Digit." "Here I am," he answered. "Who calls?" Now a great dog, spotted like a leopard, leapt into the sky and gnawed the sun. Crimson drops sizzled and fell. Wherever one touched the earth, a dark red flower sprang up, nodding and bending his heavy, sweet-smelling blossom on a slender stem. A bolt of lightning snaked across a star-filled sky. The surface of a still pond rippled, the water dark and viscous. Many voices began speaking, but what they said or who they were, he could not tell. "Digit," a single voice began again. "Digit." He awoke with a start. It was mid-afternoon. Shadows stretched like fingers across the darkening glade. He rose to his feet, rested his bulk on his knuckles, and sniffed the air. All seemed peaceful, yet he grabbed the bushes and shook them grumpily. The sun shone brightly overhead, but he could feel storm clouds gathering somewhere nearby. He grunted in annoyance, slapped his tense chest. Puck, puck, puck. The sound rang out. His family awoke. Digit set off through the glade towards the trees. A wind came up. The leaves fluttered on the branches like hands. Digit stopped, alert and poised, resting on all fours. The long grasses and bushes on the ridge before him trembled. He rose angrily to his feet. He tore up fistfuls of vegetation, flinging them towards the sky, a pungent, fear-warning odor rising around him. 5 poachers wearing torn t-shirts and greasy khaki shorts burst through the bushes, their wiry dogs bounding before them. A roaring scream burst from Digit's throat. At once his family arose and, barking and screaming, hurried off. Digit wanted to run, but he would never abandon his post to let the poachers pass. The startled poachers paused, then as their dogs raced forward, snapping and snarling, they lifted their heavy spears. Digit stood his ground and became huge, monstrous in his fear and rage. His knotted muscles stood out like ropes. Every hair stood up stiff and erect. Screaming, he hurled his great fists at them like clubs. He reached out towards the frenzied dogs to gather them to him and save his family forever. 5 spears tore into his chest. Digit stood still, almost puzzled, like a man struck by lightning on a cloudless day. Only this lightning bolt illuminated every pebble, stone, and leaf in this world and in every other, etching them all into his brain with an intense neon blue electric flame. Each fleeting emotion and flickering thought were scored forever onto the red plane of his heart. Time froze. Now, now, now clanged a giant bell whose tolling split the sky, and Digit's useless body, its heart stopped in mid-beat, toppled forward upon the earth. But Digit was ascending a ladder of light. He climbed as agilely as he had climbed the great trees of the forest, moments, days, years, lifetimes ago. Up and up he went, higher and higher, his great arms moving effortlessly. Though the sun was setting and it was still light, somehow the stars were also out, shining in the velvety blackness directly overhead. Great petals of incandescent flame leapt from the setting sun. Each distant star Digit now saw also gave off its own stream of light, like petals, or like tongues of flame, rose, amethyst, icy blue, blood red. There was a humming like the music which rises off sun-baked rocks at midday, or like the sound of many voices, too. Down below, Digit could see the poachers hacking with their sharp-bladed pongas at a great black shaggy corpse. They chopped off the crested head, the hands and feet, while the dog snapped and snarled and worried the shaggy trunk. How strange, thought Digit, rising higher and higher. Now he saw his family sheltered safely once more beneath the green forest leaves. He saw wild mountains spread below. He saw cities filled with women, children, and men. He saw blue foaming seas. Go on, Digit, go on, said a kindly voice. Don't stop. And Digit, light as a feather, light as a green forest leaf, went on rising higher and higher into the great starry African night. And now a little note on this. Digit is a modern original Jataka tale of my own, loosely based on the well-known incident of the death of Digit, moving related by the murdered naturalist Dion Fossey in her writings. Essentially, it made me really think of the Monkey King when I first heard that story. In the National Geographic, there was an article on Digit's self-sacrifice and murder. Genetically speaking, we're 99% identical to gorillas. So the differences between us from the point of view of genetic coding are quite minuscule. And there are even modern theories based on molecular evidence that today's gorillas are actually the descendants of very early human groups, which found their way into a lush and comfortable environment, and over the course of time adapted to fit their near perfect setting. Relieved from the constant stresses, pressures, and dangers that continuously shape the rest of humanity, they never develop their intrinsic potential for complex communication. Yet the potential is there, as evidenced by Coco, the female lowland gorilla, who's been taught to communicate in American Sign Language. And interestingly, there's a Mbuti, which is Pygmy legend, that the old man of the forest, in short, the gorillas, or the gorilla, was once a lazy man who liked to do nothing but lay around and eat. Gradually, he grew a coat of fur and became a gorilla. Of course, gorillas actually do risk and sacrifice themselves for their families. Hunters seeking to capture young gorillas for zoos, a practice which by now has hopefully ceased, found they had to kill many of the group's adults to get at the baby. The Jataka essence of this tale is the reality of an animal sacrificing itself for others. And the point is simply, we don't have to think of Jatakas as simply having taken place long ago. Mahayana teachings emphasize that there are countless Buddhas throughout the endless universe, as well as countless beings aspiring, even now, at all different stages of the Bodhisattva path. And so it really shouldn't surprise us terribly that Jatakas are taking place even today. And so we participate in this with our own vows. And of course, we sustain it with our own ongoing committed practice. We'll stop here.